All right, guys.
I'd be able to see my face right there.
Got Coach here. Let's go ahead and start talking about Wednesday's trip to Arizona.
Well, the Cowboys are looking forward to a great opportunity. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. I mean, nothing changes in terms of what we're trying to do. I mean, it's whether it's Cal State Fullerton on the road, Washington on the road, Grand Canyon on the road. I mean, it's our it's our preparation, regardless of who we're playing. And Grant, the opponent is really good. Watching them on film and haven't watched them all season, being that Coach Lloyd's a close friend and he's done a tremendous job with them offensively. I mean, what they're doing is the pace they're playing at. My guys probably they don't quite know. They won't know until it hits them what it really feels like at the pace that they play at. When I was an assistant at San Francisco back in the day and played Gonzaga when we were in the WCC, I mean, it takes you back. But it's one of those deals where you don't go in there hoping to beat Arizona. I mean, I think it's a matter of you never rise to the occasion, as the Navy SEALs say. I mean, you always fall back on your training, and so we're not going to do anything different than what we've done. I mean, it's not going in there and trying to reinvent the wheel. I mean, we don't need to do that. I mean, they're not going to do that. When you look at both teams from a statistical standpoint, offensively and defensively, we're both, elite in both areas. And if you really watch us, I mean, it's not like we're doing a million different things. I mean, we do about 3 or 4 things. They do about 3 or 4 things, and we do them well. And both teams have good players. And so, looking forward to seeing what Coach Lloyd has up his sleeve. I know, he's, I've got a lot of respect for him and his basketball acumen, and he's a guy that for 20 years, we've shared a lot of basketball thoughts and theories, and so I got an idea of what he might do or might not do. I'm sure he knows what I'm going to try to do something, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the players on the floor, and both teams got really good players, and look forward to seeing how we respond in one of the better places to play in college basketball. I mean, being at the McKell Center, having played there when I was at Northern Colorado. I mean, it's a great place to play, and it's a good test for our guys. And we just look forward to the opportunity.
Jeff, how much are you looking forward to the battle with Graham and a couple of their big guys that I'm going to butcher their names, I'm sure, but Colico and Tubelis?
Yeah, you kind of sound like Johnny Moyes back in the day when he was with the Celtics and they were over in Europe. They were playing against the Russian national team, and he just said, "Over the big guy, over the little guy." Those are two, Ballo and Coloco. I mean, those are 2 big dudes. I mean, that's the thing about them is that some teams might have the 7'1" guy, but then they come back in with a 6'9" guy. Well, they got 7'1" and then pretty much 7'1" and even bigger replaces them, and so. What they've done, I mean, and like I said, I've had many of conversations with Coach Lloyd over the last, since the time he's gotten the Arizona job, and him kind of knowing our roster. And, and he saw us play live when we played at Grand Canyon, as I told you guys after our game, when, his son plays there. And so, they played Michigan with Dickinson, they doubled him a bunch. And my guess is, they'll try to double in some form or fashion. Whether that's off the ball, whether that's off, on the ball, off the ball, we'll have a plan for what they might do, which my guess is they'll probably do something different. But, how many times he has an opportunity to go one-on-one, I'm not sure. But at the same time, I mean, we're going to try to, put pressure on them to guard us. I mean, I think that's the thing about, the teams that have played them, and they do such a good job of, minimizing paint touches, whether that's double in the post. Ball screen coverage wise, when you have 2 guys that size, I mean, they just try to funnel you to them and make you try to take the bait. And you can't settle for non-paint 2s. You can't settle for non-paint 3s. And we got to do a good job. It's kind of like playing San Diego State to a certain degree. I mean, we got to do a good job of being creative and finding ways to create paint touches. Because if not, as you can see, I mean, they can run the score up on you in a hurry if you're not getting the right shots.
Hey, Jeff, Arizona's been playing at a really fast pace this season. For you guys, how big of a key is it going to be to just kind of slow down some of those possessions to get them out of rhythm?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're number one scoring team in the country right now. I mean, probably pace of play. I haven't looked here in the last couple of days, but I'm sure it's probably top 5 in the country. It's I said, it's something that we haven't faced. We've faced, some teams that pushed it, but just, I mean, they're relentless with it. And that's not just on missed shots or, it's on made shots as well. And so, we prepare ourselves every day. I mean, transition defense is something that, we work on and emphasize, and, and hopefully the habits that we've built, will help us, hopefully slow them down. I mean, you're not going to slow them down completely, and they're not the team where, you're not going to hold them scoreless. And, you just got to try to minimize the damage. But I'm telling you, the first 4 or 5 seconds, I mean, between them, maybe Michigan State, Gonzaga, Baylor, maybe a little bit in terms of how quickly they get that ball up the floor. We're going to have to do a good job, but, those are things that we work on. So it's not anything that, we're not used to just in practice. We're not used to having a guy like, Mathurin and Terry and those dudes flying up the floor. And then you got the bigs, I mean, those 4s and 5s, Tabellis, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not sure, but when you got him and Coloco, you got those dudes running, running the rim. And I mean, it's just, that's where they really put the pressure on you, is the bigs. The bigs are never used to, that type of pressure, because not a lot of teams anymore run, that traditional run the first big to the rim, trail the second big, try to pound it in, point to post, and trying to go high low. And so it's, it's different than what we see. Luckily, we guard the post every day in practice with Graham, but in terms of, those bigs running, and that's where you got to, so you can't just give up 20 points. I mean, you can give up maybe 8 or 10, but you can't give up 20 or 30 points in transition like some of these teams have been giving them.
Jeff, I realize it's early and it's just a number, but you guys are number 12 in the first net rankings, and that is a metric that the selection committee uses. Is that a good sign that the schedule you guys put together and the results is at least the computers like it?
Well, it's better than being 200. So I mean, I'll take 12. It's a credit to our players. I mean, put together a schedule it's hard to schedule at Wyoming. It's hard to. You're not going to get Arizona to come play at Wyoming. You're not going to get Washington to come play at Wyoming. Those, as much as people think that should happen, that will not happen. And so, for us to be able to go to, Washington and do what we did, Grand Canyon, Cal State Fullerton, I think that win over the course of the long run will be a pretty good one as well. But, for our guys to go do what, a lot of those other teams that, in the top 50, I mean, they haven't gone on the road and played. And a lot of teams don't go on the road and play in college basketball in the non-conference. And so for us to go on the road and have 3 true road wins, at tough places to play. I mean, Grand Canyon's as tough as a place to play as any place in the country. And it's never easy going on and playing a Pac-12 team. And so, our guys have really handled the schedule well. And ultimately, you are what your record is. And much rather be 8-0 right now as opposed to 4-4. And I'd rather be 12th in the country in the net, whether that matters or not. I mean, just like anything, I mean, it is what it is, but hey, I'd rather be there and receive attention for that as opposed to the opposite.
Jeff, is there any guys specifically that you're going to challenge this game? Say Xavier Dussel, for instance, that he's got to be your best defender, but you also need some buckets out of him.
Well, I mean, that goes, I mean, it's not like that goes without saying. I mean, that's X's job is to make shots and to defend. And, he had a tough one the other night in terms of shooting the ball, but at the end of the day, I mean, X is a really good player, and he's back in his home state, and I expect him, if he's open, he better shoot it. With a guy like him, when in doubt, shoot, always be in doubt, and he's gonna play well, and it's sometimes in the season guys go through those things where they kind of go up and down the shooting, and when the other team's focusing on taking away the 3, I mean, you got to find other ways. And that's the thing about X is, he's more than just a shooter. And that's sometimes I got to, challenge him to just, you're not a sniper, you're a player. And he's such a good kid sometimes, and he kind of gets down on himself when he doesn't really need to get down on himself, knowing that, what he brings in terms of, his defensive, acumen, his defensive intensity. I mean, there's going to be nights where, he doesn't make shots, but what he brings on the defensive floor, you can't put a price on.
Bruce, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Coach. I was just following up what we were saying before. I was wondering about this game in Arizona, specifically how it came together, because I know you came here with Northern Colorado as well. And I was wondering, how many of these types of games do you look to play, being as what you said about how it's tough to schedule there?
Yeah, well, this, kind of came together with, the previous coaching staff. The one thing that in this profession, you don't have a lot of friends. You got a lot of acquaintances, but in terms of like,
Right.
Guys you can count on one hand. You usually don't want to play those guys. And so Tommy being one of those, and, and when he got the job, I got a phone call pretty quickly saying, hey, man, are we really going to play this game? And I'm like, man, problem is I got my schedule done, and it's already hard as it is for me to get games. As much as I don't want to play against you, I also don't want to try to rearrange my schedule, because, that just becomes a nightmare. Scheduling is worse than recruiting in terms of trying to get things done. And so, for us, and right now where we're as a program, until we, where we can be a consistent top 25 net team, where, now an Arizona will go play you on a neutral floor, or Arizona knows by coming to Laramie that if they lose that game, that's not going to be the reason why they're kept out of the, the NCAA tournament, where, hey, if we go and beat Wyoming on the road, that's a really good resume builder. And so that's, as I've said from day one, that's my job. That's our program's job, is to build the program up to where you could play in Arizona, in Phoenix on a neutral court, or you can play, Arizona and Denver on a neutral court, or you can get them on a home and home, knowing that, it benefits both parties. And so hopefully we can get to that point sooner than later. But in the meantime, for us it's not because we need it from a resources standpoint. We got all the resources in the world at the University of Wyoming. And so it's not like when I was at Northern Colorado, I had to raise $300,000 in buy games in order to pay the bills. I don't need to do that at Wyoming, but I also do need to challenge my guys and put them in atmospheres and environments that's going to allow us to win, games in the Mountain West. And when you go to the McKell Center, that's like going and playing at Viejas, the Pit, and those type of places. And so, just one of those deals where, yeah, probably in hindsight, but but it is what it is. And I guess Tommy and I will enjoy getting after each other on the sideline. Probably won't be the Rick Pitino and Calipari-esque, but I'm sure we'll have a couple of glances at one another.
You referenced those 3 road wins earlier this year. How much does those experiences help a team, just in terms of maybe not being as wide-eyed heading into a place like Arizona?
Yeah, it's invaluable. Our guys have, in 3 road games, it's, where we've had the lead, where other team goes on a run in the second half, and now it's either we don't have the lead or barely have the lead. And at no point in times our guys, they blink their eye. And as loud as the McKell Center gets, I'm not sure it can get as loud as Grand Canyon can with that music blaring. But it's a tough place to play, and I'm sure it'll be a great crowd. And like I said, luckily our guys have been in those situations, and I think that's that's why you go play on the road, is so they experience that. And you could sit at home and play some of these teams and get a false sense of reality, where I think our guys have a pretty good feel of where we're at as a team. And we've been in a lot of different situations where, ultimately, as we always say, you're judged by your response, and our response in all those situations have been really good. No one's put their head down, no one's wavered. Everybody's saying the right things. And that's what we talk about every day in practice, is, hey, how are you going to respond?
Jeff, it's interesting because, sorry about that. Arizona's coming off a conference game, a Pac-12 game. It's kind of strange, but I guess past Wyoming teams, maybe they would have overlooked. But you said it the other night, with that record you have, maybe you're kind of the hunted now. Do you feel like even at Arizona that's the case, given the start you're on?
Yeah, there's no, they will not, they will not be overlooking us. I wish they would. Maybe they're looking forward to that game against Illinois, but us being 8-0 where we're at, my relationship with Coach Lloyd, him knowing what we're about, their coaching staff knowing that as well. They know. And so, yeah, it's, and that's what good coaches, Coach Lloyd, he's earned the opportunity and the right to be the coach at Arizona. Maybe some people don't think that was the case because he never was a head coach. Well, I never was a head coach either until I got the opportunity to be at Northern Colorado. But when you know what the hell you're doing and you're a good, an elite basketball mind, which, Coach Lloyd is, and, when you get the opportunity, you're going to make the most of it. And you don't get to that position where you're at being him when you're at Gonzaga, where you're going to, you're overlooking anybody. That's what they had every night in the WCC. They had to make sure their guys were ready to go play at Portland and, at San Diego and all those different places in the WCC. So he knows what's coming, and, we know what's coming as well. And we know we have a, tall task in front of us, but, that we know that they're going to be ready. We're going to be ready, and hopefully it'll be a great college basketball game.
Bruce, you got another question?
Hey, Coach, speaking of their schedule, they were supposed to play Washington. When that game got postponed, was that something that kind of frustrated you to not have common opponent film, or is that not an issue?
No, it's not an issue, especially since Washington really plays nothing like we play. They don't play as much zone as they have, but having played Washington, it doesn't really matter. If you watch Arizona, they're not doing anything tricky. One of my former bosses once said, "I don't need tricky plays. I just need tricky players." And when you got tricky players like he does, and and you allow them the freedom to play the way they're playing within the concepts that they play out of, you can sit here and scheme up a lot of different things, but ultimately it's you're gonna have to find ways to make them miss, and not a lot of teams have done that very well. Wichita State to a certain degree, but I think overall, they've been firing on all cylinders. So if you watch from Northern Arizona to now, which I've watched every single game, nothing really changes. It's just a matter of, can you try to keep them out of transition? Can you slow them down in their ball screen motion? And then once that shot goes up, boy, oh boy, it's not where you got 6'7" and 6'9" trying to climb over your back to get a rebound. You got 7'1", 6'11", and 6'7". So those are going to be the challenges, and it's not rocket science, but man, it's easier said than done.
All right, guys, we got any more questions?
Yeah, I do. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Hi, this is Bruce in Tucson. I was just wondering about your general, the way you guys have played this year, shooting so well inside and get into the line. Is that something you expected, and also going into the season, and also how do you think it might play out with the bigs that Arizona's had so far?
Yeah. For me, offensively, we're gonna put our players in the best positions to play to their strengths, and knowing what my team was going to be with with Maldonado, and in which we used him a lot last year, not necessarily at the point, but he was more like a point forward, and deciding to make him the point, and knowing having to play to his strengths, which he can really play with his back to the basket and off the dribble down. And then, which, we knew as a staff, but, a lot of people didn't realize, Ike, the type of year he was going to have based off of, what he came off of his ACL tear, and based off of him, really getting in shape and not being able to practice all of last year up until January when he got cleared. We knew he was going to be a different beast. And we've been preparing since the summertime. I knew how good he was going to be. I knew how good Maldo and Graham were going to be on the block. We knew that we're going to see an array of different type of double teams, and we've been doing that since the beginning of June. Now, Arizona poses some different issues with their length and size when they do double, but we saw Washington, who's not small. Nate Roberts, he's one of the bigger guys in the country, but we've seen a lot of length and size. It's something that we won't be shocked by. And a guy like Graham, I'll put him up against anybody in the country one-on-one on the block.
All right, you guys good? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.